the United States of America. Unity and oneness is what we're made of. One nation under God, it's plain to see. We're showing the whole world what a country should be. United we stand in America, hand in hand in America.
Yes, we can't hear that.
Together
The
as
volume on the
one
music is not.
in a land that we love. United we stand.
So unless the people can hear it, we're not hearing it.
America.
Okay. Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, October the 16th. It is a little cooler morning today in the 30s and going to be a beautiful day in the 60s. We are live at the Axe Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri, and we have a great show lined up today. I am Lynn Morris.
And I'm Dr. Mary Byrne.
You are, and I tell you what, we have a great show lined up. And then we have Dennis. He's our producer, and we thank him today. We've had a little technical problems. Hopefully this show we can get through this and everyone understands. This is probably one of the most, maybe the most important show that we've done in our 4+ years. I really believe, Mary, this could be.
Yes, I agree with you. I think everybody needs to hear what Larry has to say and prepare.
Right.
So I hope, Larry, you're going to give us a few tips on what we can do to brace ourselves for what you see coming.
Right. I think he's going to be some
You ask
good
me
news and
questions
some
as we
bad
go along,
news.
and I'll
And
give you the
so
answers.
I would just tell the audience, we've got people all over the country and around the world listening to this. And I would just tell you, get a piece of paper and a pen and write down some things. Larry talks very fast. Hopefully you can see slides, and he's going to keep moving on. But the things that he's going to be telling you, that he's sharing from revelations that he has received from God, is very, very interesting. And so...
and not to worry, this show gets posted on our Facebook, so you can always go back and review.
Sure, you can do that. So if you can't watch it live, you can go back, and if you've watched it live, you can still go back, and you probably need to listen to it once or twice or 3 times. This is very important stuff. So good morning, Larry. You okay today?
Good morning. I'm great. I'm ready to go if you are.
Well, we're doing great here in Springfield. So we're talking to you from your house and down by the lake, beautiful Table Rock Lake, and in the Branson area. And we appreciate you on the air today. So we're just going to kind of let you go. I think that we've already teed it up. This is extremely important. Election's 20 days away. 20 days away, and we're going to find out what kind of country we're going to have. And so go ahead. Let's get started.
All right. Dennis, if you cue up the first slide. Dennis? All right. So going back to what Mary said, what you need to know
excuse me
before you
just a second. Hey, Larry.
I don't know what you're going to...
Let's see if Dennis can
Yes.
cue up his volume. I can't hardly hear him. So is the audience hearing him now?
Hello?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
All right. Queuing up with what Mary said, I don't know what you guys are going to think of the wealthiest man in the world, Elon Musk, but he's out stumping for one Donald J. Trump right now, and he says something that I believe with emphatically. We are in a position where America has been eroded financially, morally, and every other way, and if the Democrats win this election, the Democrats who are leaning towards China and the globalists, this will be the last election we ever have. America will no longer be a republic. It will no longer be a democracy. It will be a communist order. So the goal of the global financial elite is to establish a one world government. If we lose, that's what's going to happen. Let's go on down, and we'll get through this as quickly as we can. I want to set the stage with the next slide. I think this is something that's hard for people to get their heads around, but those 4 boxes represent each 180-degree change in policy from the global financial elite. Way back in the colonial period, they ceded power to Britain, and Britain went out and colonized the world and got control of about 75% of the world's landmass and 75% of the world's money. Then later, they decided that they needed a police force to govern the globe on their behalf, and that was the United States military. And they also needed to govern the world through money, so we became world's reserve currency. And any nation that stood up against the policies that the global financial elite wanted were sanctioned, and we would simply say, we're going to use the dollar and SWIFT to see to it that you can't trade. So we use the dollar as a weapon against the world, and now the world is saying, we can't tolerate that anymore. Then along came Carter, and what they said is now we see that America has too much power. We have to cede power to China, and we have to have a whole new economic system. What we have to have is a super capitalist communist economy. And what that gives them is an economy with the innovation and manufacturing capability of America, but with the control of a communist order. And then we go to the last box, and this is really hard for people to understand, but the dollar as the world's reserve currency is backed by nothing. Every dollar that was ever printed from inception was written based upon a bogus check that had nothing in the count. And every dollar then transfers over to create a bond, which is the debt obligation. So every dollar ever printed, we now have $35 trillion, and that is our national debt. And we can't get out of that when we're under a fiat system, because every new dollar that's printed makes us owe more and more and more money. So the global financial system has to collapse in order that we can have a reset that's going to give us our freedom back. So that's where we're at right now. We're at the point where the Ponzi scheme that is the fiat dollar has reached a point where the American people can no longer feed their families. The dollar is virtually worthless and must collapse. That's where we're at right now. Let's go on down, and I'm going to take you to a slide that's going to seem a little strange when we're talking about a U.S. election. But basically, I want people to understand there are governments out there, Russia and particularly China, that are very interested in having America remain a proxy and be basically part of the global one world government. So we've got China Joe, and that's what people call him. And he said basically famously, come on, folks, we have nothing to fear from China. And what happened now? Remember, Harris says, I completely agree with every policy that China Joe has had. And she basically selected a vice presidential candidate who has some very strange connections with China. And so basically, we've got interference in this election from China. And to those Democrats out there, I've picked 4 things that I think the Democrats are looking at in terms of this election. And I want to show you that you're missing the point. The point is, if this election goes to the Democrats, it's effectively going to the Chinese. So they're out there, people saying birth control is a huge issue for us. Well, you need to know what's happening in China on all 4 of these points. Basically, China has mandatory abortions and mandatory sterilization. So if you think putting abortion in the hands of the state's a bad idea, how would you like to live in a country where you could mandatorily be sterilized? And then we got a financial system that's going to flip, a reset, and it's either going to flip to the global elite or it's going to flip to giving us freedom back. So in China, what do they have? Central bank digital currencies that are what? Programmable, that can tell you what you can buy and what you can sell. That's the B system. And so think of it. That basically aborts the entire Constitution, because they can simply program your currency and say, hey, Lynn, you can't buy a gun. You can't buy bullets. You can't buy food with sugar in it. So that's what's currently available in China and would be coming to America under a Harris administration. And then privacy. Boy, oh boy, I've been to China. Every corner has a camera, and facial recognition is following you to do what? To give you a social credit score. So if you say one squeaky word against the CCP, your credit score is hit, you're financially zinged. That's what's coming to America, folks. That's what they're not telling you in this election. That's what you need to be thinking about, are the consequences of not electing Donald J. Trump. Let's go on to the next slide, if we would. What I want to do is I want to read this because there's a word in here that's very important. Hold on, my computer is not doing what I want. All right, every time somebody comes out against the global financial elite, they call them a conspiracy theorist. Well, when I got my assignment in 68, when I had my near-death experience, God said, not with you. He says, you're going to approach this in a different way. You're going to become a Bible scholar. You're going to become a historian. Everything you say, the Bible's 70% history, is going to be based on history, which is cast in concrete, which cannot be called conspiracy theory. But here's what Kennedy was telling us just a few days before his death. I'm going to read this very slowly and accent some words. He says, we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding a sphere of influence and infiltration instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on conspiracies by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which conspired vast human and material resources into building a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines, listen to this, military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operatives. Is there anything left? That's basically what? They get politicians that they buy that are puppeted by the global financial elite, and they control all the spheres of influence. So, folks, I hate to tell you, but basically we have a uniparty, and we don't have the freedoms that we think we have. Let's go on, and I'm going to try to go through this quick. There's a lot of slides to do in 45 minutes. If you go to the next slide. Basically, what I'm encouraging you to do is stop listening to what they say, because what they do is tell you every time what they want you to hear and then do what the puppeteers tell them. So you can't listen to these people. Our governments are lying, the politicians are lying, bankers are lying, our corporate leaders are lying, our religious leaders are lying, our celebrities are lying, our military leaders are lying, the media is lying, social media censors us, they're lying, and our educators are lying. So basically, we have to go to alternative sources like this show to find out the truth. So don't ever, ever listen to what they say and what they promise. Look at the history of what they've done, and then you'll know the truth. Let's go on, and I'm going to show you a pretty graphic picture that is my interpretation of the state of America. That is Uncle Sam, and he's being given a defibrillator because he's basically on death's door. So what is the current state of America, and why is this election so important? If we lose this election, if Donald Trump is not elected, like I said, we're going to be a dictatorship. So our government is basically within the hands of the enemy, i.e. China. Our elected system has been hijacked. So we've got this controversy about whether the last election was stolen or not. And the courts won't hear it because they're puppeted by the global financial elite, just like our politicians. Our borders have been invaded, and folks, that is a war. That is a war that is more serious than World War I and World War II, because in those conflicts, we were what? Fighting a known enemy on their soil. Here we have an unknown entity hidden, cloaked within our country that's able to come out and cause terrorist attacks at random. There's 17 cities that people say they have targeted, and I fully believe that at the appropriate time they're going to activate those people, and we're going to see chaos within the United States of America. And our dollar is imploding. And if you doubt that, then think of this. In 71, we were backed by gold, something tangible. Nixon took us off of it. And on June the 9th of this year, they announced that Saudi Arabia was ending the U.S. oil petrodollar. And now the dollar is not backed by gold. It's not backed by oil. It's not backed by anything. And it is experiencing rampant inflation. The dollar is dying. America is on death ground. Let's go on and we'll see what we can do and what you should be focusing on in this election. So I'm going to make this slide very simple. We don't have a Republican Party. We don't have a Democratic Party. Enough people in both parties have been co-opted that we have a uniparty that represents not we the people, but represents a global financial elite that's intent on basically enslaving the world. And what have they told us through the UN and their Agenda 21 and their Georgia Guidestones? We want to have resource sustainability, and the way we see to get that is to kill 7.5 billion of Ulysses eaters. So basically, folks, if we lose this election, you're likely to lose your life and lose your freedom. So I ask you a question. Were you better off under Trump, or were you better off under Biden? I think the answer is clear. people. The economy was strong and resilient. America was respected under Trump, and now we have massive inflation and we have conflicts all over the world. So do you guys have any comments? I'm talking awful fast. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think you're right on. The research that I've done shows that the Rockefeller foundations were very instrumental in taking ownership of our politics. And don't forget, it was the Rockefellers that donated the land the UN is currently sitting on. So it was Americans acting against America through their financial system, because David Rockefeller was the president of Chase Bank and used his influence in that position basically to set up China. He complimented Mao. And it was all all the steps that were necessary to be taken in order to set up this global financial system.
And
You
they
know
kept
what,
money
Larry? I
by
want
driving
to.
us into debt.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go on, Lynn.
Lynn.
Lynn?
Oh, well, Larry, I just wanted to tell you, what we're hearing, what you said is really scary. But I think that there can be a positive outcome if we get the right person winning. If President Trump can win re-election, then win this second election, then I think that this country can be restored. But I think you're exactly right. And you've talked about the Rockefeller Foundation and how all this worked before. And this is exactly, and I want people to know, I really believe that you're correct on the Party because it's Republicans and Democrats both alone. There's enough of them agreeing that they want this one world government, and I think it's extremely dangerous.
And it was by design. David Rockefeller set up the Trilateral Commission that and invited Carter, Bush, and Clinton, and orchestrated the election of all those three, and it represents the Democrat and the Republican administrations.
Right. Okay, go ahead with your slides.
All right. So basically, if you'll go, I can't tell what slide you've got up. Go to the one that says slavery versus freedom.
There.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, I'm going to reframe this election based upon some things that I think you're not being told by the media, by the corrupt politicians. There's 8 things on these next 2 slides that represent either slavery or freedom. A fiat monetary system. That's a debt system. That's the slavery system that we're in right now. What is the adjunct to that? The 180-degree opposite. That would be going to a gold-backed monetary system. And so what you're going to see, Lynn, is I never do a show unless I scare you with the facts and the truth, but give you the hope. So there's hope on the right-hand side of this screen all the way down. And then the second on their slavery is a central banking system that basically can be turned into a central bank digital currency if the Democrats win. On the other side is blockchain, which cannot be manipulated, decentralized digital currency backed by XRP as the rails of the monetary system. That is a system that cannot be manipulated. A fiat currency can be inflated and deflated, and they can use it to cause financial collapses. Commodities have an essential value, and they cannot be manipulated, especially when associated with a decentralized blockchain. Let's go on. The global supply chain, we look at that and we say basically the world had a wake-up call in 2019 when they realized under COVID, we can no longer afford to give our power to a single nation to control a supply chain, because then they can control pricing and control availability. So what's the answer? We are moving to deglobalization. I've done shows on China. China is on the brink of absolute collapse. They say by the end of next year, 90% of all the manufacturing in China will have left. China is going to be relegated to being a regional power, never to realize its dream of being a global superpower that's going to take over control of the United States. It's not going to happen. And then we go down to the U.S.'s bogus green agenda. Now, they've driven us into debt with war and with the fiat currency, but now they want to burden us with a $93 trillion Green New Deal. And that comes, folks, to $600,000 of debt burden for every American. Who out there has an extra $600,000? So what's the answer? Donald Trump said we're going to get free energy. Kim Clement said we're going to get free energy. I say we're going to get free energy. And later in this presentation, we're going to find out why. And why is that important? Because the principal cost of every commodity you have bought in your life and will buy the rest of your life is attributed to energy. If we get free energy, the cost of all consumables will go down. The standard of living of all Americans will be improved. Let's go to the next slide. Open borders. My God, Trump had them closed. He built a wall. And what did they do? They came in and they changed all of his policies. He'd stay in Mexico. They'll reverse that. And now our cities are full of illegal immigrants that are what? They're invading homes. They're basically there as potential terrorists. So basically, they also had a lot of that wall left laying on the ground to be put up. And instead of putting it up, they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. Then let's go to something that most people are not going to know the meaning of, Western hegemony. Here I'll give you an analogy. Boardwalk and Park Place in the game Monopoly. If you own those two pieces of property, it's almost assured that you're going to win. So hegemony is basically controlled by the Western governments, the industrialized portion of the world that basically is wealthy and control what emerging nations can do and deprive them of the ability to have the to get access to their own natural resources because they deny them the necessary infrastructure. So what's the opposite of that? Global parity, which I'm going to tell you in a while how we reached that. And then we just talked about the uniparty, and basically the financial elite have bought all of our politicians and all the spheres of influence, and we have to get out of that. And how we do it? A political reformation. And we'll get to how that happens in a minute. But basically, there's some things happening that I think are going to see some major changes in the political structure of our country. And then election tampering. I mean, folks, they tell us that we can't talk about it, but it's real. And you're going to see before this election cycle is over that Donald Trump is prepared to basically expose it this time. What he said before is, I knew 2016 was stolen. I allowed 2020 to be stolen because you have to catch a thief in the act. I guarantee you Trump is prepared to catch them this time. Let's go on. I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can. So basically we come to Kamala and Joe, and Kamala says, I support all of Joe's policies. So she's basically saying, I support open borders. And what I say is a nation without borders has no sovereignty, period. It basically is a wide open frontier. And if you can see that picture, that is a Trojan horse with an army of illegal immigrants that are tearing down a barbed wire fence to gain access into this country by force. They are a political invasion army sitting here prepared to attack America from within. So basically, they have given the biggest responsibility any politician has, especially the president, is to safeguard the national security of the nation. And they have basically given our security away by opening these borders up to potential terrorists. Let's go on. And then we get to, one of my favorite people, Yuval Nahara. And what does he have to say? I probably pronounced that wrong. This is a quote from him. The most important question in the 21st century economics may well be, listen to this, what should we do with all of the superfluous, meaning meaningless people, once highly intelligent, non-conscious algorithms can do almost everything better than humans? Well, the answer is Agenda 21, Agenda 30, and Agenda 50, which exposes the fact that they call us useless eaters and want to kill 7 or 7.5 billion of us in order that they can have their version of utopia, which requires resource sustainability to achieve through mass genocide. That's what you're voting for, folks, if you vote for the globalist Democrats. Let's go on down, and we're going to go to another very important topic, which is the lie behind the Green Deal. They tell us it's carbon. Well, carbon's a factor, don't get me wrong, but there's other things that are much more important. We, America, feed 100 nations. We are in what they call the grain belt, the 40th latitude. And guess what? Our aquifer in California is drying up. The Colorado River is drying up. And the largest aquifer in the country that's in the 6 plain states is drying up. And we are facing with the drying up of those aquifers, a global level famine when we can no longer irrigate, and basically the world starves. And then let's go down to something that they never talk about, and that is we were stupid enough as a race to create a forever substance called plastic. And now it's in our ecosystem, and they say there are more microscopic plastic particles in the oceans than there are stars in the galaxy. And what do? Our climate, think about this, think about the huge storms we're having, the hurricanes and the tornadoes. And here's one of the principal reasons. The North Pole and South Pole represent our air conditioning system. Cold air flows from the North and South Pole to the equator and returns and cools the Earth and controls the weather patterns of the Earth. All those microparticles collect heat, and they're turning our air conditioning system into a heater. And the more energy that we have, the more violent the hurricanes and the tornadoes are, and the more our weather patterns are disrupted, the more we have periods of drought and periods of floods, and we don't have the normal weather cycles we used to have. And then something people don't even think about, we've killed 80% of the insects in the world. That's the basis of the food chain. You kill them through pesticides, and basically the whole food chain collapses. And another thing they don't think about is we're also poisoning the oceans, and plankton represents 75% of all the oxygen on the planet, because the ocean is 75% of the land mass. So without oxygen, without food, without a weather system that is stable, without water to grow our food, we're looking at an extinction event, folks. That's the truth behind the global New Deal. And what you're going to see is that alternatives that they're giving us are nothing but a pack of lies. Let's go on to the next slide. What they're proposing in Agenda 21, 2030, and 2050 are solutions that are astronomically worse than what we already have. They're saying, the answer is solar panels. Solar panels are chewing up our silver, which we need for all of our electronics. And with the volatility of the hail and the tornadoes and the hurricanes, as soon as they put one of those solar fields out, they're being destroyed and going into landfills and contaminating the earth. And the windmills basically are killing birds and killing fish. And guess what? Both of them are connected to the grid. And after spending billions of dollars, catch this, the total contribution to our grid is 12%. They're telling us by 2050, using these technologies, we'll have zero carbon emission. I'll tell you, that's the lie from hell. And look down at that battery down there, that car. That's a Nikola Tesla 900-pound battery. And you think back a couple of years ago, and after California pushed that, they finally said in the middle of a heat wave, folks, you can't charge your cars because basically the grid can't support it. So that's a lie from hell. The option on the other side is initiated by the Supreme Court and Donald Trump, and that is the reversal of a very heinous bill called the Chevron bill, which took control of the manufacturing of America away from us. What that bill done, it was just reversed, and it basically says that when there is a question about a piece of legislation that revolves our commerce, in the past, it went to the corporations who had a vested interest, say, for example, to see that we didn't get free energy, because they would say, that's a national security issue. Why? No, it's not a national security issue. It's an issue of them protecting their multi-trillion-dollar interest in the global, in the grid and in oil and gas and so forth. So they have denied us technology that we've had for about 100 years. And under NASAR, they tell us there's 6,000 patents that we can get. And you want some encouragement? When we get those, America innovated the world with the Industrial Revolution. And now we're going to get access to those patents. And when the whole world collapses and we have a new financial system, America is going to share that technology. And we're going to have a revolutionary amount of technology dropped on us. It's going to make the Industrial Revolution look like nothing. America will basically bring the world out of its financial doldrums into a period of prosperity, the likes of which we can't see. That was provided in order to give us the technology we need to bring the world back. If we go to this next slide, I'm going to go through a little promo on my book very fast. God gave me this in 1968 when I died, and basically he showed me to study history in the Bible, and he exposed what the agenda of the global elite is, how they divided and enslaved us, how they've taken our freedom, how we get it back, and how we keep it. And in this period of time, if you understand the things that are in this book, you will be armored with the armor of God, and you will not fear, because you will know that there has been provision made for America to fulfill the destiny that God gave us. We will be the greatest nation in the world. China is done. We're not going to be a global dictatorship. We are going to be the light on the hill that brings the rest of the world back and brings us to parity and ends war. Let's go on, and I'm going to give you another way to look at this election. If we go over and look at these pictures, we got Eisenhower, Reagan, Kennedy, and Trump. They were the only four men in the last 71 years whose administrations benefited the American people, brought us closer together, united us, and gave us financial prosperity. What did each of them do? Eisenhower warned us of the military-industrial complex and how they would use war to financially enslave us by having wars for profit that were drug out for eternities. Most people don't know what Reagan did. He was going to give us a gold standard, and when they tried to kill him, well, he kind of backed off on that. But what did he do? He basically ended the Cold War with Russia. That was very beneficial to us. What did Kennedy do? He gave us a silver standard. He refused to send additional troops to Vietnam, and he was taking power away from the CIA and from the FBI, so they had to kill him. And what Trump's doing to drain the swamp tops what all three of those men combined did. So he's enemy number one of the global financial elite. So I ask you again, are you better off under Trump, or are you better off under Biden? Are you better off of China Joe, or with a man who says, I'll make America great? Not only that, I'll make America greater than it ever was. Let's go down, and real quickly we'll start to contrast administration under Trump and Vance versus under Kamala. So basically, under Trump, we have the strongest economy in decades. That's undisputed, folks. That is an absolute fact cast in concrete. And what do we have under the Biden-Harris administration? Remember, she's been in for 3.5 years, so these policies she's promoting now should have been already implemented 3.5 years ago. We have the worst inflation and the worst security in decades. So, are you better off under Kamala or under Trump? Trump was the way back to prosperity and national security, period, end of statement. Let's go on. All right, this I think everybody is going to recognize. This was the assassination attempt at Butler, and I'm going to tell you why they are so desperate to kill this man, because he threatens them more than any other human being on this planet. He threatens their global central banking system, which he's going to force to collapse. He threatens the control of the UN, their global governance organizations. He threatens their corporation, their corporatocracy, which is the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, D.C., which are all controlled by the global financial elite. He threatens the demise of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Economic Forum, Davos, basically any and all of the global financial institutions of the world. He came in, and this is the reason the Democrats have been able to say, oh, he's a loose cannon, but God uses people who are powerful and who will not back down. He came in as a bull in a China shop to open our eyes, to wake us up, to show us what was being done. In his next term, he's a lot mellower now than he was before. His goal is to unite the people and to restore peace and prosperity, not only to America, but to the world. Let's go on.
I always refer to Trump
Go ahead.
as Samson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Samson was the uncontrollable anger and unpredictable disposition who had a bit of trouble with women. But in the end, God was able to harness him and harness his strength for the demise of the temple of Dagon, the temple of Dagon, and the salvation of the Jewish people. So people like to refer to him as David, but I refer to him as Samson.
Yeah.
I think he's both, and I think he's more than that. He also saw the demise of the wall, which another famous figure in the Bible did. And we're going to go on, and we're going to, real quickly, because I don't want to run out of time on us here, we're going to look at basically do not listen to what Kamala tells you. Look at what the Biden administration did. Look at what Kamala's history as a politician tells you. That's what you vote on. Vote on their record, not their lies and their promises. So if we'll go, okay, I guess you've already changed slides already. No, go to the next slide. You haven't changed slides. Okay, so basically, this is what the Biden-Harris administration gave us. Rampant inflation. They cut oil production. They inflated the money supply dramatically, causing rampant inflation. The war in Ukraine, the debacle in Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of U.S. war material for our enemies. Open borders, sanctuary cities. They defunded the police, which leads to what? Crime, a surge in crime, ended cash bonds. So when they were burning down Minneapolis, Kamala was out raising money to bail those very people out. I mean, unbelievable. They ended the stay in Mexico, which invaded our cities. It's what you see over on the other side, where Trump had them basically remaining in Mexico, and entitlements for all illegals. So they've turned away from giving financial aid to our veterans and to people in lower income brackets who are American citizens, and instead they're giving every form of entitlements you can imagine to what? Illegal immigrants, because they want them as a voting bloc of indentured servants to vote in not democracy, not a republic, but a dictatorship. Let's go on, and I'm going to slam Kamala, and I'm doing it with the truth. This is her life story before you, folks. So listen, look at what she's done. Mandatory gun control. Wait a minute. That's the Second Amendment being breached. On censorship. Well, that's the First Amendment being breached. And ending the filibuster in order to do what? Pass the $90 trillion debt obligation associated with the Green Deal. Ban fracking. Basically, if you control oil, you control all the necessities of life, because that's energy and that's the lifeblood of the planet. Packing the Supreme Court. So basically, we become a dictatorship. Into private insurance, putting the rights of LGBT people above those of our own children. Transgender sex operations for what? People in prisons? My God. Discriminating, decriminalizing illegal immigration. Come on in, folks. That's no problem. We don't care if you hold our beliefs. We don't care as long as you come in and vote according to the way we want you to vote. Sanctuary cities where you can commit a crime if you're an illegal immigrant and you're not held accountable. Half the citizenship for illegal immigrants. Defunding the police and ICE, which means rampant pandemonium and chaos in the country, and no bail laws. So do you want to live in a society that's like the Wild West, or do you want to live in a society that has peace and order and that has prosperity? I think it's a no-brainer. Let's go down, and what are the Democrats saying? Be careful about Donald Trump. He's going to be a dictatorship. He's going to be Hitler. Well, I'm going to pose the question, will the real Hitler please stand up? So this is what Kamala is promising us. She says, basically, I ask you this question. Who pressured Zuckerberg to censor free speech? It was the Democrats. It was the Biden-Harris administration, and he was just forced to come out and say, I spent $400 million trying to see to it that Trump was not elected, and the Biden-Harris administration told me to censor Trump to keep him from getting elected. Open your eyes, folks. And then who supports mandatory gun control? Kamala. Who supports packing the Supreme Court? Kamala. Who supports ending private health insurance? Kamala. Who supports open borders, which basically means chaos? Kamala. Who supports no bail laws? Kamala. Who supports sanctuary cities? Kamala. So who supports chaos and financial collapse? Kamala. So I say, Kamala, please stand up and be recognized for who you truly are. Folks, it's that clear. Now we're going to get to some good news. Trump saw all of this coming. God saw all of this coming, and he prepared a way. So these are things that have been laid, traps that have been set, and ways for us out of this that are already on the table for those to see who have eyes to see. Here's what happened. 2019, COVID comes along. What does COVID do? Bam. COVID initiates the process that says to the world, we have to deglobalize. We have to take power back from China and give it back to the world where basically we have deglobalization. So if you need a computer chip, you're not dependent on China. You can get it from 6 other sources. So basically, that's the first thing we got. Then on March 27, 2020, listen to this, Executive Order 13912. It did what? It activated the reserve units to federal duty. Why? Because under our Constitution with posse comitatus, you cannot have a standing army. But Trump saw what was coming and made a provision so that we would have the means to protect ourselves when all of those illegal immigrants rose up to create pandemonium in this country. June the 9th, 2024, something paramountly important. That was the termination of the petrodollar, which means the death of the dollar. So deglobalization is happening, and that is a good thing. China has to fall, the dollar has to fall so that we can start over. You can't build a new house on an old foundation, and we'll start over with a commodity-based system that cannot be manipulated and controlled. September 18th, 2024, the Fed lowers the interest rates. Most people are not going to know what that means, but every deflation we've ever had is orchestrated. First, you increase the money supply, you lower the interest rates, you focus people in an investment, you make it go up, you pop the bubble, everything collapses. And then at the end of an inflationary cycle like we're having now, they finally say, we throw our hands up, we have to lower the interest rates, people can't afford the debt burden anymore, and that triggers the insiders to know the collapse is on the table. So basically, they just lowered the interest rate a half a point, announced they're going to lower it again, and the global financial elite, who are connected to the central banking system, said, aha, here's what we're going to do. We're going to short the dollar. And China has invested billions in shorting the dollar to collapse the economy of the United States. So make no mistake, folks, there is a global financial failure coming, but it's the best thing that could ever happen. And let's go on to orchestrated financial reset. June 28th, 2024, the Chevron case. And what does that do? I basically said it gives us the ability to sue to get back some 6,000 shelf patents that are going to be the basis for the greatest economic restoration the world has ever seen. August 7, 2024, the XRP case is settled. For those who don't know what XRP is, it is a system that allows commodities like gold and silver and a whole barge load of wheat, for example, to be broken down to the smallest, to be fractionalized down to the smallest denomination you can think of, so commodities can be traded just like a dollar. And so basically rails for what will be the new financial system of the world. And that has been provided. We won the case, and just as I expected, the SEC has now appealed, because what they're going to do is hold the price of XRP down till after the financial collapse, and then all the insiders are going to get the cue. They're going to say they're going to dismiss this case, and they'll come in one day, and the price of XRP will go through the ceiling. So folks, if you know about XRP or want to know about it, do your research. You've got a very short period of time to invest in what will become the new world's reserve currency. And let's go on. I lost my place. We're down to what I believe. Nope, you stay on that same slide if you would, Dennis. We're bound to basically 2024, and I had the occasion to meet Lloyd Brunson down in Florida recently, and we discussed a very small little case that most people don't know about. Each of his brothers filed a case, but the sleeper case, I think, is going to be won. And the prophets are basically suggesting the Supreme Court that has been blackmailed has basically got the slavery chains taken off of them, and they're going to vote. I think this is the case that's going to drain the swamp. What happened is Brunson tried to get an election fraud case brought before the Supreme Court. They turned it down. 3 left-leaning Democrats voted against hearing the case. He has come back and filed a case that says, because that was a national emergency, you breached your oath of office and left America potentially in the hands of a foreign entity, i.e. China Joe. And so now that case has been being heard by the Supreme Court, and those 3 judges who refused to hear the case are plaintiffs, meaning what? They are recused. So if the 3 people most likely to vote against hearing charges of election fraud do not have a vote, I think it's highly likely that that case will be won. And when that case is won, then the case against Congress will likely be heard and be won. And that is where something similar happened, where 380 congressmen and senators said, we care so little about the national security of the United States that we're willing to certify an election that may have been stolen and put in China Joe, breaching their oath of office because they may have allowed a foreign entity into the White House. So if that case is won, 380 congressmen will come back from their vacations and find that they're no longer politically active. They have been taken out of office. So the platform is laid for the complete economic and political restoration of the United States of America and the world. Now let's go on. This next slide represents a very complicated concept, but I've tried to make it simple. We go back to our monopoly example, and what you've got is the Western industrialized nations of the world, Park Place and Boardwalk, controlling the emerging economies that are actually very wealthy. Let's take Africa. Africa is the wealthiest continent in the world, but they are also the poorest nation because the Western hegemony has denied them the money to develop the infrastructure to be able to access the resources. That's going to change when we go to deglobalization, and we're going to give, just like we gave Saudi Arabia military protection and we gave them technology, we're going to give that to Africa and other emerging economies and give them access to their natural resources, to their true wealth. And what's that going to give us? Social equality and economic parity. And what that's going to do is end the principal cause of war, because wars are caused because of disparity between different nations. So we're moving into a period where God is going to see to it that mankind has peace and prosperity, and everybody is on an equal playing field. Now we're almost done, like 2 more slides left. So what's going to happen when all this collapse happens? We're going to get the truth. The truth's going to open our eyes. We're going to stand united. We'll have economic parity with every nation in the world. There will be a stable currency that cannot be manipulated. The stock market will not be manipulated because it's not going to be based on futures. It's going to be based on solid economic foundation. Does that company make money? Has it made money repeatedly? Is it giving dividends? Is it solid? Good. Invest in it. It's not going to be based on futures. And we'll have free energy that will make every commodity you'll ever buy the rest of your life cheaper. We have technology. When we get free energy to clean the water and to clean the air, that's too long a story to tell, but I've got whole presentations that I've done on that. We'll have a technological revolution where we have technology that's been denied us since the 18th century that's going to revolutionize the world. And we'll have a new medical system. Donald Trump said that. And for those who don't follow, I truly believe there are med beds. Go back and research Nikola Tesla and what he gave us all the way back in the 18th century. We'll have freedom of speech. And why? Because when this economic collapse happens, the biggest economic collapse in the world, at a period of time when the world was absolutely saturated and could not consume one more dollar of debt, what's going to happen is entire nations are going to fall, their governments are going to be taken out, and blue chip corporations by the hundreds are going to collapse, and that is going to change everything in the world. And all of those media outlets that censor us, they're either going to capitulate or go under or be bought. And we'll have our First Amendment and Second Amendment rights back. And there will be peace, prosperity, unity, harmony, and spiritual awakening. And all those taxes on the other side are gone, because if you've got a democracy, you don't need those. What we had originally, I should say a republic, is a single sales tax. That's what we're going back to. But when you've got a dictatorship, what do you have to have under communism? A progressive tax, because as the debt goes up and up and up and up, you have to increase the taxes to cover the debt burden. So that's all going to go away. We're going to have an equal playing field, and the people in the world are going to live together in peace and harmony. So we're almost out of time. I know Lynn's got a commercial to do, so I'm just going to encourage these next 2 slides are a review. Look at those slides. That's the 8 slides, the 8 points that are determined slavery versus freedom. And every one of the ones on the left side are represented by the Democrats and the global financial elite, and every one on the right side is represented by the disruptor, Donald J. Trump, who's promised to make America great and to bring peace to the world. And with that, If you're interested in buying my book and joining God's army and knowing what's been done, click on that QR code. It'll take you to my website, larryballard.com, where you can connect to Amazon and buy the book. So Lynn, I turn it over to you to
Hey.
do whatever you need to do to wrap up. I talked as
Larry.
fast as I could.
Hey, you did you did great, and I just want to let everyone to know this program is brought by two sponsors that are very important, and the first one is Brad Pistow. He is a certified fiduciary financial planner located right in Ozark, Missouri. His phone number is 417-581-9222. He has been on our show just recently. Mary and I talked to him, and he is a brilliant financial planner. He has written 2 books, and you can get those books free. The first book is Safe Money Matters, and the second book is Bulletproof. And when you call that phone number, 417-581-9222, they will send you a packet of information. He's licensed in 16 states. He also knows people in all 50 states, and he can help get you lined up with programs of retirement that you will never run out of money before you run out of your life. We'll have him on one more time before the end of the year, because some of the things that Larry just talked about, you're going to need to talk to your financial planner. And so I think this XRP is very interesting. Larry's already talked to me about that, and I think you need to figure out what you're going to do about your stocks and what you're going to do to protect your investments. So anyway, that's our first sponsor. Our second sponsor is John Whittaker, Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia, located at 3535 South Campbell. Their phone number is 417-882-3838, 882-3838. They sell Nissans and Kias on one side of South Campbell. They sell used cars on the other side of South Campbell, right across the street from each other. And most of the used cars are actually certified cars. He was on our, actually it was Aaron Swanson, the general manager for Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia, and he was very intelligent about cars. And so we'll have them on one more time before the end of the year. We like to have our sponsors on to share what's going on. Right now is a great time to go to Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia. They're trying to clear out 24s models, and so the 25s are pushing them out of the parking lot, so they can make some great deals right now. And so we highly recommend those two. And I just want to congratulate Jim Whining and all the other people, Dennis, everybody that's involved in Acts ministry, worldwide non-denominational ministry that basically, very simple, believe in God, Son, Holy Spirit. This show is brought to you by our sponsors and Acts Ministry. And there'll be a lot of people that won't believe what they heard today. What I would urge is to watch this show over and over. And you need to share this. Share this just like you share the good news of Jesus Christ. You need to share this show. You've got 20 days to share this with as many people as you can. You can have darkness or you can have light. And that's what the decision of this election is going to be. Okay, last word.
Larry, I just want to thank you. Everything you have discussed biblically and financially, I've heard in outside sources, particularly the Chevron case also had the benefit of neutering the administrative state in Washington, D.C., so that they have lost their power to replace the power that truly belongs with Congress and with the courts. The administrative rule that was coming down because of Chevron before the court flipped it, gave the administrative departments the power to make the decisions of interpreting law. That's a judicial function. And finally, the court took it back in this case. So there were multiple benefits, and what I'm saying is supporting what you're saying. We're getting our freedoms back. So it's going to get a little darker before we see the light, but hang in there. And that's what your message is.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, thank you very much. We'll have you on again soon. I'll be calling you next day or two. We'll make our strategy out and appreciate everything that you do. I know that you're on more and more shows all the time, getting to be extremely well known in this country, and we appreciate you being from Missouri and close by. Okay, thank you. Thanks for everyone
pleasure.
listening today, watching today. Thanks, Dennis, for getting all this technical stuff going. Everyone have a great rest of the week.
And we'll be back.
Yes.
All right.
We're showing
Thanks,
the
Mary.
whole
Thanks, Lynn.
world
You're
what
welcome.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.